Today's show, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Nikola Topic in the first round and make a draft night trade getting Dillon Jones. All this and more coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer, Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder, making a bit of a surprise selection at pick number 12, selecting Nikola Topic in that spot, and then trading back into the first round, going up and getting one of those New York Knicks picks and getting Dillon Jones. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. What a wild night it was. This draft went as unexpected as we thought it would. We were mentioning this entire draft process about how flat the draft is, about how there's no true consensus, and we saw the surprise picks early. Ron Holland going to Detroit. That was a surprise. Many people had Ron Holland falling. He goes to Detroit at 5. Many people had Rob Dillingham falling. He goes to San Antonio at 8, who trades the pick to Minnesota, who got all the way up in the top 10. Top 10 in the draft by giving away future first-round picks. So quickly, the board started to shake out, and there were some surprise selections. Cody Williams goes at 10. So the two absolute best-case scenarios on yesterday's best, worst, and most likely case scenario were gone. The worst case scenario of Zach Edey was also gone. Yves Missi never in consideration. And the Thunder at 12 decide to take Nikola Topic, who we've discussed with Brandon Rabar on this show, of a guy that is a bit of a wild card. Because, as we get into the topic conversation, it deserves a more measured approach than what I believe it initially got. I believe that initially the reaction was a bit unfair. You have to remember that at the end of the day, the Thunder are a 57-win basketball team. And I don't say that to excuse anything, because you can be a fantastic team one year and backslide the next year, and not all contending teams are created equally, but this is a unique situation. So they draft Nikola Topic at 12. Nikola Topic is out for the entire year. The Thunder have said as much. The Thunder believe, that is something that they can maximize, having just seen their developmental staff and medical staff do that with Chet Holmgren. So here's the deal. Let's start with Topic and just get right into it. Were there more pro-ready players at pick number 12 that we would be talking about right now having a bigger impact than Topic on next year's team? Obviously. Topic will literally play 0 minutes next year, right? But as we've mentioned throughout this process, the draft classes and roster situations are not created equally. I know that Derek Lively last year had a massive impact. I know Jalen Williams 2 years ago had a massive impact. I know the history at pick number 12. This was not one of those draft classes. This is not one of those teams that can absorb a rookie and really lean on them. Whenever you look at this pick, the immediate gut reaction is, why didn't you go address the front court? Why didn't you get someone who can play? You've got to take a step back and realize that you would not be happy. I promise you. Those of you typing away about another guard and not addressing front court today would have been typing about how the Thunder can't settle for just a rookie big man coming in and trying to appease all of the issues on this roster. The Thunder are trying to win a championship. You do not win a championship by filling your biggest hole with a rookie. It worked out for Dallas, who got last year to the finals and largely was on the back of Derek Lively. Totally different situation. There was no Derek Lively at pick 12. There just wasn't. But in general, right, the entire basis of having a treasure chest of draft picks, of having top 5 in the league cap space, and having roster spots that are flexible is to go improve your roster by getting NBA-ready players and NBA veterans. That's the luxury you afford yourself. So the pick at 12 was the rare lottery pick that never really mattered. It was never going to be this magic elixir for all their problems, and we've said as much on this show if you've been listening. So why not use it as the biggest swing for the fence pick? That's what the Thunder have elected to do. Now, by doing this, the Thunder have put pressure on themselves. So don't think this is all sunshine and rainbows. The Thunder have now squarely put pressure on them that I don't think, can roll the ball out there October 1 as of this moment. Coming off of a 57-win year where you've seen that you have a core good enough to compete at the highest of levels, your big moves cannot be adding Alex Caruso, who's a fantastic move, fantastic pickup, and then adding a guy who cannot play a single minute this year in Topic, and then adding Dillon Jones, who, while a member of the All Juice team, nobody had evaluated at 26. Now, granted, I had him at 36, so there's only 10 spots difference, and if Sam Presti gives a seal of approval, I'm not going to quibble over 10 spots, right? So, but the bottom line is this cannot be the end of the discussion, and I don't think it will be. I think that the Thunder will go make a move that has you excited and addresses some of your concerns. And if they don't, then we'll have a different conversation in a few months. But that's not the conversation we have right now. Right now, today, the reason for this pick, the reason the Thunder went out and got Topic is because just mere months ago, he was viewed as a top 5 prospect in this draft. So you have the ability at pick 12 to potentially get a top 5 prospect in this class. Or you have the ability to get someone who has a significantly lower ceiling, but could step on the floor this year and not fix your problems. You would still have holes to fill and not have the allure of that upside, and have exceptionally difficulties trying to crack the rotation. If you're sitting there squirming about the fact that the lottery pick is not going to someone who can play, write down right now how many players you want minutes to have in this Thunder, on this Thunder roster. You want Shea, Caruso, Dort, J-Dub, and Chet to have minutes. Absolutely. You also want Kaysen, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Kenrich Williams, Jalen Williams, again, to have minutes. You've also invested a lot in Ousmane Dieng, who I think can see some front-loaded action next season after the years of development you've poured into him. And you still have $1 billion first-round picks and top 5 in the league cap space to address these issues. This was not the only chance. It was the first chance to address this roster. So it was going to be incredibly difficult for even a guy like Dalton Connect, who I really think is a good player, to step on the floor for this team. It would be a battle. It would not be given, right? So the fact he can't play this year is not that big of a deal for what the end goal and end accomplishment could be. Let's talk about it if it misses. Because honestly, as you've seen with Poku, as you've seen with other players, the more likelihood of these high swing picks is that they don't pan out. That's the most likely route. If Topic misses, you are out nothing. You have an abundance of get out of jail free cards. You just turned 5 second-round picks into a first-round selection. So you miss nothing. You miss the 12th pick and a bad draft class. We can't sit here for an entire year, a 12-month period, and say how bad this draft class is, and then bemoan the fact that the Thunder didn't draft somebody who has a significantly lower ceiling than Topic. You can't have it both ways. So here's the thing. Either Topic will be a top 5 guy from this class, or Topic will struggle to get on the floor because of his lack of defense. His jump shot won't come around as we expect it to, and it'll just be an experiment and an archetype that the Thunder really want to try to capture that they still can't, and that still eludes them. The only way that the Topic pick shakes the foundation of the Thunder's roster is if it hits. If it misses, you'll forget Topic exists. He'll go the way of Gabby Deck. He'll go the way of Vic Krejci. He'll go the way of Theo Maledon. He'll go the way of all these other prospects. The only way this pick impacts your life is if he's a top 5 guy in this class. Because even a miss doesn't sink the ship. Even a miss doesn't limit you in any way. The only way this matters is if it's good. That's the luxury you gain yourself by having these first-round picks. That's the luxury you gain yourself of having a 57-win team that is not top-heavy. It's 11 players deep. So I hope that puts some of your concerns aside. And again, this is not all sunshine and rainbows. If the Thunder don't actually go out there in a couple of days as free agency opens and trades heat up and everything else and improve this roster with an NBA caliber guy, then this conversation is going to be a little different. But I think people are acting as though this was the final step of the offseason, and opening night against the Mavericks is tomorrow. This was the first step. There's still plenty of time to go. Plenty of time. Now, coming up, what does Topic bring to the table? And the Thunder entered the night with 1 first-round pick, left the night with 2. But first, let's hear right now about your friends over at GameTime. Check out GameTime right now. Why should you? Because GameTime is the best place to go and buy tickets. GameTime is the authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals and all-in prices, you can go right now and check out GameTime. But it's not just sporting events. It's baseball season right now. They have all the sports you can want. There's also comedy shows on there, movies, whatever you need a ticket for, GameTime's there for you. What separates them is their last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% on last-minute buys for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater on GameTime. They also have flash deals, which gives you exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals, all-in pricing, which I love. You can toggle this and have the feature show you everything up front so you know exactly what you're paying. No surprises at checkout. I love that. Views from your seat. If you're going to a venue you've never been before, you want to see kind of what the angles are like, the sight lines, that's also great as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Go download that GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at Hello Thunderpod. Also, check us out on Thunder on SI, Sports Illustrated over there, doing great stuff. The whole team is, and we've got a lot of draft stuff already out there. We'll have even more for you in the wee hours of the morning, such as top second round prospects to go trade for, which we'll also have a bonus podcast on, and some columns about what this means for the Thunder on the fallout. Now let's talk about Topic as a prospect, because we've gotten all the preamble out of the way of what this means and the setup and everything else. So Topic is a prospect that the easiest way to describe it, and hear me of what I'm saying and what I'm not saying, is that the Thunder clearly covet and are in love with the Josh Giddey archetype, and they've reset their timeline of getting that right. So a lot of you will jump to that, meaning that these guys are 1-for-1, Josh Giddey and Topic. That's never a thing. There is no 1-to-1 carbon copy of one player to the next. But the archetype of positional size blended with fantastic passing is what the Thunder are looking for. Topic is just a souped up version of Giddey, even from a prospect standpoint. While Giddey ended up going top 6, right? In that draft class, he was pushed down on most big boards to the 10 region. At the end of the day, here's the difference of the Giddey situation. They're vastly different despite being a similar archetype, right? They're both jumbo playmakers, but here's where they differ, and it's pretty significant. First and foremost, just prospect for prospect, I think that Topic is a better live dribble passer. You saw early in his career, even up to present day, where Josh Giddey oftentimes picks up his dribble too soon, and that kind of limits him as a playmaker, as a passer. How much of that was the awkward fit with the Thunder? Who knows? Give him the benefit of the doubt going to Chicago. But Topic does not have that flaw nearly as hard as Giddey does. I think that the biggest separating factor is it was always going to be a very, very, very tough task, even for the best shooting coach in the world, to get Josh Giddey up to snuff as a shooter. The task does not seem nearly as daunting with Topic. And I'll tell you why. This is not just a pick on Josh Giddey session. It's just backed up in reality. And the reality is that Topic comes into the league at 18 years old, way more polished as a rim finisher, 68% at the rim. And that does not include any dunks. Like, it's all layup based. It's all touch based for him. You can say the no dunk thing is a concern because, shout out the No Dunks pod. You can say the no dunks thing is a concern because of the athleticism that it takes to dunk or whatever. But nonetheless, the touch around the rim is there. It's feathery. It's awesome. He comes into the league with 32% shooting off the dribble, and on early jumpers, 47% for Topic. Now, the catch and shoot stuff is not good, 29%. He's not gotten to a place where he's very good at three-point production just yet. But here's the thing. He shoots 51% from the floor, which is very efficient. And where he differs from Josh, on top of the rim finishing being more polished, on top of the 30% shooting from three baseline, the most humongous difference is the 86% shooting at the free throw line, which is the biggest indicator that scouts use to project, future, upside when it comes to shooting the basketball. That is a massive difference, a killer difference. So I like Topic's ability to finish at the rim much better than Giddey's at this stage of their careers. I like Topic in the sense of like his shooting upside more than Giddey's shooting upside at this stage of their careers. So that's massively different right away. The other key difference is something that Josh Giddey couldn't control. The other key difference is Josh Giddey was thrusted into a situation where all 3 years in Oklahoma City, his roles were completely different. What was demanded of him, what he was trying to work to fit in toward, was completely different from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. And each year drifted further and further and further apart from his skill set. No longer was he trying to grow with the team. He was trying to fit into the team, and it was like fitting a square peg through a round hole. Whereas Topic comes in to a team that will be sustainable, right? There's not these ebbs and flows. There's not this roster turnover. There's not this refinement of play style. There's none of that. This is the team. The team is built around these constructs that Chet and J-Dub and Shea and Kaysen and so on and so forth already play and already fit into. The core nucleus of Chet, J-Dub, and Shea, the hierarchy will not be shuffled around. That's how it is, and you embody that style of play. It's not going to change on you, which makes it easier to integrate into, makes it easier to find your place, and they kind of just get a redo. With institutional knowledge of what worked and what didn't work with this archetype before, with knowledge of a better understanding of how they can utilize that role. Let's not forget here that despite trading Josh Giddey, the Thunder had crafted this idea of how to leverage his skill sets by bringing Josh Giddey off the bench. Now, we don't know, they didn't tip their hand, they didn't reveal everything, but we know it's rooted in coming off the bench. And coming off the bench, they thought that they had something there that could have worked out to maximize Josh Giddey's skill sets. Now, you transfer that to Topic of he won't be asked to be a starter unless he hits that ceiling well down the road. He'll be able to fill in on a plan now that they've obviously altered for this archetype. with a much higher chance to boom as a shooter, which then reverses course right back to where it makes it easier to play with all these guys. So they just have more knowledge now, and they're just not racing against the clock now. You were going to have to pay Josh Giddey. Now you've reset that. And I cannot understand, I cannot undersell enough how important it is that they got to see, how they handled Chet Holmgren's redshirt season, which made them more comfortable with Topic's upcoming redshirt season, which Sam Presti confirmed to clear up any confusion that while Topic won't be playing this year, he will be with the Thunder just as Chet was. So I believe that someone said that Shams had it wrong or whatever. I didn't get the obviously plug into all the coverage being at the facility and everything and getting work done. But just to make it clear, Sam did confirm that Topic will be with the team and be following that Chet model. So that's what you have on Topic. This is a fantastic jumbo playmaker with true shooting upside, not shooting upside where you have to squint to try to find it. You can see it clear as day. He gets into a team with a really good developmental staff, with the patience and the luxury of not needing anything out of him, and a renowned shooting coach who needs a new project. So this is check on what Topic does in theory that fits with what the Thunder are trying to do. This is a comfortable environment, I think, for Topic to be in as a player who's trying to reach that status. And even with this year off, he'll enter next year as one of the youngest guys in the NBA. This guy's 18 years old right now, soon to be 19, but right now he's 18 years old. So I just think that you don't have to be doing jumping jacks. You don't have to do cartwheels in the street, but you also shouldn't be, peed off about this move. It shouldn't really get your goat. At worst, you should look at this as an uninspiring, indifferent move, because there's absolutely no way this move comes back as like a bad move. It's either going to be a move that's forgettable, or it'll be a move that shakes the Thunder for the good. And you've really nailed the one here late in the lottery. There is nothing bad that can come from this pick, because you just have too many options to replace it. It's like a Trey Mann. Nothing bad came from missing on Trey Mann. And I love DaRon Holmes. I mean, I'm not an NBA GM, but I probably would have picked DaRon Holmes. He clearly didn't go near pick 12, but I think that DaRon Holmes could have impacted this team right away at a position of need. But DaRon Holmes' ceiling is a potential starter. That's clearly your fifth best starter out of 5. More realistically, his potential is an extraordinarily good backup big man, power forward. I would consider him a modern day big man. Topic's ceiling is borderline smart guy all-star. Now, again, the most likely option is that these guys don't hit their ceilings. It's incredibly hard to hit your top 1% ceiling. But the Thunder have the luxury of letting that allure lure them in. And it doesn't really matter if it pans out or not. So would you rather have the chance at this panning out big, or relying on a rookie backup big man? Now, again, this is all under the pretense of it has to be coupled with the Thunder going out and getting, an NBA caliber guy and utilizing these assets to go get someone who's more NBA ready than a rookie would be. Otherwise, the tenor and tone changes. But with the information we have right now, where we expect that to happen, this is a fine pick at the very worst, and a fascinating pick at the very best. And we'll see where it lands. Coming up, Dillon Jones and your mailbag questions. We're back on Locked On Thunder Podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Dillon Jones, the Thunder trade up using five second-round picks to trade up and select Dillon Jones. Wrote this at SI, on Tuesday about how the Bridges trade makes it more likely the Thunder will go and get that Knicks pick. I thought that they would be targeting Johnny Furphy, who was available, still is available, but instead they were targeting Dillon Jones, who I had 36, who was a member of the All Juice team at SI earlier this week. And when you look at Dillon Jones, first and foremost, the 5 second-round picks should excite you. The Thunder spent 5 second-round picks, and I think that the sticker shock is great. In reality, it was the equivalent of Taylor Swift spending $1 million. And what that translates to is you or I going and buying a Starbucks coffee today, treating yourself to a pick-me-up after the draft night that included power outages and staying up until 3 a.m. That's all this is. A price well worth paying to get a guy clearly the Thunder have coveted above the rest, and clearly they felt the need to go get this guy at 26. They had information, whether it's legitimate or not, that information that they believed genuinely that someone would take Dillon Jones, who is a fascinating prospect. 6'4", without shoes on at the combine. However, he compensates for that with a 6'11" wingspan and a very sturdy 237-pound frame. I think that you can look at this and say he's a guard. He plays more like a forward. Sam Presti discussed this with Alex Caruso last week about how oftentimes people look at height, but what the Thunder look at is efficientness and effectiveness. Whenever defending bigger guys, Jones has been effective in both filling it up stat sheet wise offensively, but effective also defensively at defending spot up chances. He also ranked in the 97th percentile in pick and roll defense, according to Synergy, 77th percentile in terms of shutting down spot up chances, according to Synergy. Where I think that the interesting aspect comes in for Jones is at 22 years old, it's this tank that can roll to the rim and finish at will at 61% clip at the rim at Weber State last year. He had 34% on catch and shoot chances, which, if you buy the jump shot, 34% on catch and shoot, when you project that you'll have more spacing and you'll have players with better gravity around you at the NBA level, of course, whenever you have the attention of J-Dub and Shea and Kaysen, etc., working with you, that number could climb. 39% off the dribble. He showed he can drive the bus offensively. He did it for the Wildcats, throughout his career. As a spot-up scorer, he turned in 1 point per possession, which is good. You want to see that number go 1 and above. He got 1 point per possession. In transition, he was excellent, 1.2 points per possession. What I would be curious about for Dillon Jones is that in college, he only had 12 shot attempts out of the pick and roll. The Thunder love guard-to-guard, screens. And obviously, Weber State did not have the roster necessary to let Jones spend much time away from the ball and as a screener. But now you do have the luxury under Mark and what he loves to do. I could see that being an area because of his quality hands, his catch radius, his rim finishing, and catch and shoot jumper on the pick and pop, 34%, which I think can uptick. I would really watch out for that being a way that the Thunder use him, as a screener. So that's what you got in Dillon Jones, who's a funky player, but man, does he bring the juice, hence the all-juice team selection of just this amazing motor, this absolute junkyard scrapper, just scrapping for parts on the glass of getting all these rebounds, despite his unorthodox frame, all these rebounds, plays with an edge, a physicality to him, and I think has some playmaking feel. We'll dive into that summer league and we'll dive into that in the future, but the initial shock jock reaction to Dillon Jones is intrigue. And Sam Presti's bought himself some currency with this as well. And again, it's only 10 picks higher than I had him. And I'm not an NBA GM, I'm just an idiot with a podcast. So it's not crazy to think that the true value of him was higher. Let's talk about your mailbag questions before we get out of here. We'll save some for tomorrow as we discuss some second round steals OKC could look at. Dengi says, my takeaway is that the Thunder fans need to chill. I agree. David says, no big, not feeling great. Yeah, I mean, again, I understand that the big man position was where a lot of people had the concerns. I had concerns about table setting, which technically, I mean, yes, Topic is a table setter, but one that you cannot utilize for a calendar year. So it doesn't really do much good for next season. So I still have those two concerns. But I don't think that like the fact that they're not relying on a rookie to fill those needs is that big of a deal until it is. Like until we get to a point where okay, they're not addressing this period, then the conversation shifts a little bit. But I don't think that the conversation should shift right now. We gave our opinion on the Topic pick. Jalen says, "Will Sam Presti make a move tomorrow?" Meaning today, second round. There's so much value left on this board. They've already spent 2 roster spots on rookies, but man, there's so much roster spots. There's so many value picks on this board that someone really talented is going to fall into that 2-way range where like you're a second round pick, but you're willing to sign a 2-way contract. And the Thunder at least have 1 2-way spot open. Don't know what they're going to do with Keontae Johnson. I think they're going to bring him back clearly because they invested a draft pick in him, but don't know what they're going to do with Adam Flagler. But you know for a fact that like you just can't bring back Olivier Sarr, who cannot play next year because of his injury. So I would feel decent about the Thunder getting into the second round, which is why we're doing a bonus pod about second round prospects tomorrow. Greg says, can you explain the stash option with Topic since the Thunder don't expect him to play next year? Yes, the Thunder are going to sign Topic, even though they don't expect him to play next year, as Sam confirmed. Again, we're going to save some of these questions for tomorrow. Tej OKC over under 400 minutes for Dillon Jones in the league next season. Initial reaction under, but we'll see how the offseason shakes out. I really do like Dillon Jones, though. Daniel says in Presti, he trusts, and we'll talk more about these questions coming up in the future. But thank you so much for listening to today's Locked On Thunder podcast. Let me know what you think of these selections by Oklahoma City. Did I calm your nerves at all? Are you still pretty miffed about the selections? What are your feelings right now as we sit on the first ever day 2 NBA draft day? How fun is that? We were all hyped up on sugar for day 1. There's still another day to go of NBA draft coverage. You can find it all at SI Thunder, also at Draft Digest on SI. And you follow me on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. So until tomorrow, be good and be good to one